Let's get salty!
Everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and we're a little bit later today because, as expected this week, although wasn't expecting a teaser Monday, but hey, we have a balance patch teaser that goes over the only two cards, one of which was already banned in Shafar, getting nerfed, as well as just one card buff at all. And it is for Protoss, but it's a weird one. We'll go over why. Again, I mentioned this last week. I'm probably okay with not like any major, a major balance patch at least yet, as it's only been a couple of weeks since that mini set launch. But yeah, we'll go over like what exactly is going on. These again are teasers. We don't know the official changes. That should go live tomorrow, I believe, with the patch notes. So if you want to help us on our road to 100,000 subscribers and stay tuned for all those news, hit that sub button down below, give the video a like. Yeah, as we are on that road to 100,000 subscribers. I can't believe we're even in the realm of that. That's awesome. So yeah, these will be changed. These will be the cards changed. Again, I don't know if they've set up publicly, but I believe the patch is tomorrow. I believe it will be on Tuesday. And yeah, Nexus Prince Shafar got that day one ban because of its like disgusting interaction with Zerg leg. And this one's gonna be very interesting to see how they change, because if you just make it 4 mana or make it like +2/+2, is that like enough, right? Like that stuff scaled so fast. And there's also the whole Shafar rogue to keep in mind too, right? The whole deck with like South Sea Deckhand and all that, which was like really good going into this mini set. We didn't really get to see if it was still really good after, because everyone was playing, Shafar Hunter at the time with the Zerg legs, and then it got banned. So maybe Shafar Rogue still would have been insane. We just don't really know. And I feel like this card probably needs a rework of some sort. The amount of cards that they have that like summon a copy of itself are always going to be a problem with Shafar because of the way the spell burst stacks, right? The thing gets 2+3/+3s, and then all of a sudden every minion after that, it just stacks and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you have charge minions in the game and things like that, or Zerg legs, it becomes a large problem. So yeah, there's a lot of things they can do with this card. They can make it 4 mana. They can make the buff less. They can make it a one-time hit somehow, but then the card's really bad, right? It's just what, the old Mead Streets card, Don Honcho. And that was a legendary, well, I guess this is a legendary too, but that was supposed to be like a tri-class legendary, and it was considerably worse, although it didn't have spell burst and all that, but it was 7 mana at the time. Regardless, yeah, I expect to see a pretty significant change to this card. I don't think a mana bump will, do it. It's pretty risky to do that. And I feel like, it promotes a pretty degenerate game plan when it's meta, and if it's not doing that, it doesn't see play. So that typically indicates kind of a bit of a design fail on a card, right? Like if it's only leading to like really gross, disgusting things, that's not a good thing for a card. By the way, we'll talk about a card that's not on this list that does exactly that I am the one card I'm annoyed that's not on this teaser list by far. But regardless, yeah, be curious to see what happens, but definitely needs a significant change. It cannot be minor, or else what was the point of banning it and like going through all this? Typically, cards like this do get hit pretty hard. And another one that might need a rework, Photographer Fizzle. Despite the fact it will be rotating to Wild in like a month and a half, right? With standard rotation coming up in March. Fizzle is getting nerfed. They obviously don't like the whole infinite thing going on right now, right? Like it was fine when it was like one like deck and it wasn't like super popular and top tier, but now Terran Shaman, the best deck in the game, arguably the most popular too, can just go infinite so easily. You got Warrior doing it as well. You've got Hunter. There's at least 3 different like pretty top tier decks all abusing Fizzle to go infinite, which I don't think was ever the real, purpose of the card. It's to give you a snapshot of value and not like infinite, constant thing. I suggested this last week. I would hope that they just make it like once per game on the snapshot. like that you can only play the snapshot once and then it's it. It would probably not be very intuitive because like you can add maybe multiple of them and it might be weird. I don't know if once per game would actually work at all. The other options you have for this is you just make it really expensive. You make this 5 or 6 mana, right? Like you can't just make it 4. You have to make this expensive or nerf the snapshot to be more expensive, right? Make that clunkier. Like there are options, but I feel like even if you make it more expensive, like it's so easy to go infinite and like ceaseless, which is the big enabler of a lot of this, because you have a 0 mana board clear in there, is still a 0 mana board clear, even if it's like a 5, 6, 7, 8 mana snapshot, right? They wouldn't do that, but you know what I mean, right? Like it would make it so you get like a Rainer in the same turn and stuff like that. You could look at like a 4 or 5 mana snapshot. So there are things you could do, right? So whether it's once per game, make it more expensive and less flexible, I feel like those are the two main options. And we have seen them add once per game to cards more recently. The Mage Quest in Wild being, I think, the most recent example. They haven't used it a lot. They don't want to, they don't want to like be the fun police on a ton of cards. And like, this just is one that I feel like deserves it and makes sense. And when it rotates to Wild in like a month and a half, you can just revert it back because it's never really been an issue in Wild outside of like, there was that Radiant Elemental like OTK deck, right? That they ended up banning. I think they banned the 1 mana Overheal card because there was like an infinite loop with Fizzle, right? So there was one deck, but since then Radiant's been nerfed to not less than 1. Like this is what happens when things go infinite, whether it's mana cheat or value. In some instances, it's just too much and they do hit those things. So we'll see what happens, but to me, I would do once per game on Fizzle, but yeah, they might just make it more expensive. So people that want to go infinite still can. It just might not be as competitively viable. And only one buff. It's not Grunty, it's not Warp Gate, it's not any of the cards on our worst cards list, which really surprises me. It's Void Ray. This one's weird, right? Like, I do understand Protoss doesn't have a lot of minions to work with, so let's make this better, I guess. What do we do to buff Void Ray? I imagine it gets a bigger buff, like +3/+3. Like, it actually kind of goes in the flavor. If I've discounted by 3, I gain +3/+3. I suppose you could buff the initial stats on this, although this is already Argent Squire with Rush, but maybe a 4/1, 3/2. You can make it start at 2, but I feel like the whole idea is to discount it by 3 with the Warp Gate or whatever it's called. I'm very curious, but I can't imagine a Void Ray buff being what moves the needle for Protoss. I just can't. But at the end of the day, I don't know how you buff Protoss, because like you pretty much, I feel like, have to hit the warp drive, the location, because that like is supposed to fuel a lot of stuff and it's not very good. Like it's one of the worst performing cards in Protoss. So you buff the mana cheat thing, it's always very scary. And as you can tell with this patch, they're probably pretty happy with the way the meta is, right? They're only hitting a couple of like clear outliers and that's it. Like, so to me, they're probably just not wanting to mess with stuff. And then maybe like the patch before rotation goes live, they decide to do a bit more bold buffs into that period where we're waiting for the next set, right? Because people are pretty happy with the current meta. There, the main complaints I see are about Fizzle. Legit, on like Hearthstone subreddit, it's Fizzle and like a couple other cards. And while the cards that I'm surprised, like not completely surprised, I'm disappointed at one card not being on the list, and that's Dungar. Like, I'm sorry, this just promotes toxic play pattern of ramp into Dungar and win, or you don't and lose. The drawn win rate on this card is the highest in standard by a mile. It's some, I'll put it on there, it's some obscene, stupid thing where like, that's just not healthy. It's not fun. It's not an interesting game plan. But I feel like the main reason I mentioned this in my nerf prediction video is it's one of the only cards or decks out there that can beat Terran Shaman and Zerg DK. Like, it's one of the only ones out there that's competitive. And I feel like, yeah, if they nerf this, then they might be afraid nothing keeps it in check. But do you really want to have this disgusting thing be the reason the meta is in balance? Like, that's not a fun thing. I don't know. It's tricky, but yeah, I really would have liked to see Dungar, even if it was just like to 10 mana. Like, not like outright gutting it, just to 10 mana. But yeah, it's not on there, and I'm sure I'll see a lot of comments, and rightfully so. Infestor's not on this list. You could easily argue that this card should have been nerfed. The play pattern it creates, especially with that aura, once it gets going early, it's just like game over. It's really frustrating. There's not really a ton of ways to interact with this other than like hexing or silencing the infestor before it goes off, but they can even give it rush and all sorts of things before you can even do that. So yeah, this is not on the list. I could very well see, you know, these cards being nerfed on the next patch, but I will admit, like the people seem to be enjoying the StarCraft set, myself included. And I said, if they did a more minor patch to start, see how things go, I'd be okay with that. Because again, you do run that risk of like, if we nerf all the newer stuff, then we're back to playing Handbuff Paladin and Weapon Rogue and Dungar. Like, we're just playing the same old stuff, right? And we'll have new stuff to do the next set, next rotation coming soon. And so why not enjoy, you know, whatever this is until we get sick of it, if we're not already, in a week or two, and they can make more changes. So overall, I think I'm okay with this. Yeah, these are the two that stand out. Like, you might have wanted to hit, but I probably understand it. And tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow, we'll have the patch notes. I'm sure there'll be dev comments explaining what's going on and the reason behind it, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, stay tuned, hit that sub button to stay informed. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day and stay salty, my friends.